Hi, y'all. It's Man in the Shack. So I'm darn close to releasing this thing. The War of the Chosen mod with the character pool and the class modifications. It's working. I've been playing with it in the game, and it's working the way I expected it to work. Uh, you can see soldier type is soldier class is the breaker class, right? So there's one for each guy, right alongside the other things. Alright, you can see the breaker class, his loadout has got his. So what I've set inside these classes is it's using the RPG overhaul, which gives them access to as many powers as get shoved into that format. Currently, it's at my count is 166. I think that's going to rise very shortly because I'm pretty sure they released another thing today. That's the powers that that are available to them. Now, of those, 19 of them, 19 specific powers, or what's called traits that they get at the beginning of the game, those are now set so that Breaker will always get the same two. That will always get the same two traits, traits that work with him, as I explained in the other video. Moreover, his loadout is a rifle and a gremlin. Whereas in the in the Flash class, his is a sniper rifle and a gremlin, and in the Stalker class is a bullpup and he's got a holo targeter back there. That's what he starts with. So those are all working inside the game. It's acting just as a regular RPG soldier class would work, and I'm just pleased as punch with it. But I'm still testing a few things before I put it into the, before I release it into the wild, and I'm gonna, put together customized classes for the Cobras and so forth, and get all that working as well. But those are things that can come after. I think this first version is pretty darn near good enough. Before I do that, one of the things that I wanted to do was finish going through just as a series, just to complete the series essentially, to go through the Cobra characters that I've done here, just to take a quick look at the models in the same way that I did the other thing, because there's some pretty cool stuff in here too. Now the way I have these set up, let's look at Commander here, is the quintessential model. His head, he's using the regular old vanilla thing. There's actually a Cobra Commander head model that somebody had made in a mod. It doesn't actually fit with the body size. It looks like the head is too small. It's like squashed. So unfortunately that does not work. But with this avatar mask and with the regular old helmet, it's actually a pretty fair approximation of his helmet. It's certainly his with this color of blue and with this mask like this. There's no mistaking that it's Cobra Commander. So I've given him a sort of battle ready armored top, mostly because there's not a really good analog to his dress uniform, which is what he would usually wear with the helmet like this. His first representation is kind of what I was really aiming for. This is kind of a compromise, given that's a pretty specific uniform that he had, and there's nothing even close to that. But we can get the color right, and there's many different uniforms that and battle armor and different kinds of things that Cobra Commander's worn over the years. So as long as it's clearly him and we've got that with the head, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Now in general, the Cobras are following this pattern where I've got them set as can appear as Dark VIP. Storm Shadow is the only exception that right now I just have these all as view as soldier class soldier, the regular old vanilla thing. So if you went, if you wanted to play with the Cobras in the game or with just the Cobras exclusively or whatever, and had them in the character pool, just ding and ding. There you go. Now Cobra Commander is part of he'd show up as part of the characters. You might potentially have now the way I've got it set up as a default. The 84 Joe characters would appear in the armory, and that's using that's with modifying the configuration of the starting soldiers mod, which would be necessary. So if you wanted to play with the Cobras, that would have to change as well. I'll put it all in the documentation, but you know, just to say it out loud here. So moving on with the characters, Baroness. I've gone through a number of iterations with her over time. She's basically, she needs something form-fitting, sleek, is how she should kind of be, and I think this works. This is the same outfit that I've been using for the ninjas and stuff. That it's form-fitting. It's the most form-fitting thing that there is, and there's nice slim sleeves, and of course these provocative pants from the one of the first downloadable content from the game. In a bit of character-related irony, I've actually changed the face that I use for the Baroness. I had her at a different female face, and I decided that when I was redoing this model that it didn't look right. It made her look older, I think, or at least just, I don't know. I'm not sure. I maybe it's just that I use that face in too many other places, but I gave her a different face, which, if you know the character's history, is kind of funny because she's really the only one that I've done that to. That's Baroness. Dr. Venom, of course, because I look at the comic continuity first. Dr. Venom is a pretty prominent villain in the beginning of the comic book series. He's dead after not too long, but the crazy mad scientist is a good thing to have, and especially in a game like this. So he's he didn't have a crazy uniform. He wore a lab coat, and he didn't wear a mask or anything. He looked pretty much like this dude. This is actually a pretty darn fair approximation of what the guy looked like. Of course, it's got the XCOM specific lab coat and stuff, but whatever, I don't care. He didn't have a color that he wasn't really his motif. It's like he had a white lab coat and that was it. This works pretty well. Scarface was Dr. Venom's patsy in a scheme that he was doing, and Scarface was essentially a regular old Cobra officer, a Cobra trooper. So this would represent what the vanilla, what they call a blue shirt Cobra would look like inside this game. It's using, as you can see, this one torso that gives us the logo on the front, and he's got this tack mask, which I used to use on a lot of people, but has slowly dwindled down as better things have been available, and now it's only in a couple of places, and he's one of them. You can see that Scarface here does indeed have a big gnarly scar on the side of his face right there. If I were to port this over and have other blue shirts, I would have them look just like this, but change the face so there was no scar. There you go. That's Scarface. Now, the Major Blood model I find very compromised at this time. There was, in the vanilla version, there was a mod that gave us a helmet that was darn close to his real helmet. That is gone, so I'm using this thing, which is a dark helmet that is sort of similar in shape to what it should really be. Happy with this torso. He needs a big black flak jacket kind of thing over, and then a black metal arm. All that's good. I like this arm. It's kind of futuristic looking, but he's had many different arm styles over time. The big bulky forearm was what I was mostly going for in this with this choice. Block shaped forearm. That's what I want more than anything. I am also in the camp that it is a mechanical arm, not armor. I don't actually remember what it is in canon, but I like mechanical arm. This arm is terrible. It is the wrong shade of brown. It's way too light. Unfortunately, with having to have two different arms, I have a different pool of things than there are with the regular arms, and there's actually no arm that is that gives us the correct secondary color, which is what you see on the pants here, and ultimately what is the background color of this, should be that color, this arm should be that color, but it's not. I feel like that this will fix itself in time, or rather, something will happen and I will fix it in time. Right now, this one is kind of a pain point to me, if you want to be honest. Destro, on the other hand, I think is pretty darn good. A long time ago, one of my fellow modders who has done a lot of work with image files and stuff has he had put together this thing that approximated Destro's head shape by putting shade in the correct places and stuff. That, coupled with his skin color being actually this bright white or silver gray, it gives it this look that says that he's got this metal head, which it's just the regular old face, but it allows the look of a mask while retaining the expressiveness of the face. That is outstanding. That we could get that we could get something that would approximate Destro. So, with all the things that are needed, because there's masks and stuff. There's even masks that could almost look like faces, but they're all completely rigid. It's too bulky. It needed to feel more natural, and despite the despite the violation of the laws of physics and what beryllium steel would or would not do, we need Destro to have an expressive face, and so this accomplishes that. As far as his costumery goes, there's lots of different ways that this could go. Fortunately, there's not a big V-neck thing with an over elaborate collar. So his original actual look is not going to happen. But I've done my best to retain the color scheme. Mostly black with red accent. I need to get. I think there's some better arms, and I think that there's something that's going to allow us to put wrist rockets on him, or something that's going to look darn like wrist rockets. He needs the gauntlet. It basically needs the gauntlet cosmetically, regardless of how he uses things. I also noticed today that the gauntlet got put back into the game, so thank goodness I can make Zap correct and stuff. Anyway. With Destro, again, I feel like that there's going to be an evolution, whereas most of the Joes, I'm really starting to feel like, especially with, some of the advances recently, some of those guys are so darn close, I don't know what else I'm going to do with them. With a lot of these Cobras, I really feel like there's a lot of room for things to change, though. Firefly, on the other hand, is actually quite good. There's, of course, with his style of, thing, there's lots of options in the game, especially with all the stuff for him to look correct. Put a bunch of stuff on him and get the right colors and the right camouflage, and there you go. There's even we even have a good choice of masks, and I like this one best for him. Another one that I'm very, very pleased with is Scrap Iron. This particular torso and these arms, some of those things that have come out lately. I've used it on a couple of people. Putting this backpack on him like this gives him the feeling of he needs to have bulky stuff with him. You could almost say that's almost the shape of his launcher that he would carry around. The blue and the red, it works for me big time. And I just thought of something. I think I can actually improve his head. and I know how. 1 second. These ballistic goggles that are they have been the only option of you know, for a long time. Those were the only thing that you could really put over his eye. Now notice how scarred up his face is. It wasn't immediately obvious on his original figure and stuff, but this guy has, like, you know, this guy is just south of Snake Eyes as far as having his face destroyed. There it is. This opaque visor. There's several in this. This is the one with the goggles that solved a bunch of problems for me. But in this case, I actually want him to have that. That looks more like him, doesn't it? You can sort of see around the sides there. Maybe play around with the helmet. There may be a better helmet for him too. I'm not going to do that right now. But I do think that is... I've been thinking about these for different people, and I think with him in particular... that I like these better than the ballistic goggles. They make him look less human. And he's a bad guy. Scrap Iron sucks, man. He killed the Soft Master. Okay. So Copperhead, character that I like a lot, just because I had the toy when I was a kid, and I thought it was cool. I think I've used this same sort of things that I've used for different people who have sort of the aquatic jobs and stuff, you know, this is pretty easy to get. It's not, the patterns aren't exactly right, but I've tried to get the colors in a decent approximation. He's got the same sort of problem as Wetsuit. But I think this is a real good helmet for him. This combination that, you know, there's lots of different pieces that can be used in combination to make helmets and stuff, and I think this was a very successful one. So it's Copperhead. Wild Weasel, another sort of helmeted guy, and, you know, like, I think he kind of, like this, he's using a bunch of Advent stuff, and I think he kind of looks like an insect, which is kind of neat. But here's an opportunity to where you can have a character who's got little bits of armor and stuff all over him. He needs to be... He's the exact opposite of Ace. He's Ace's specific foil. So, whereas Ace has all of, like... Where Ace's design is soft and curved, his is hard and angular, if that makes sense. So I've intentionally used these arms that give these sharp edges to it. A mask, which there's lots of ways to make Wild Weasel's masks. Now it took a long time, you know, at the beginning to really flesh out. But there's so many helmet options and stuff that you know. This is just kind of like what I've ultimately landed on. It's actually a combination of a couple of different helmet pieces that are overlaid on top of each other. Again, it's angular, whereas Ace's is round. And that's, you know, that in addition to the red versus white, it's the you know, but I've been intentional about the aesthetic with some of these things, with some of these guys as pairs or groups and things like that. So I'm actually pretty happy with Wild Weasel. Tomax and Zaymot, there's the suit. I like the suit. I like them better in suits than I do in their circus uniforms. And the fact of the matter is, there was not a good mirror image torso that would make it that would make that feel right. So I'm very, very happy to just put them in their suits and call that done, and say that that's how that they would, you know, how they would appear. If I could color the suits, I could make them, you know, I could make them their colors from the cartoon and stuff, which would be cool. But you know, I don't really care about that so much. It's like I like having them just be plain like this. It emphasizes the, you know, the kind of like what they would do differently. And of course, they are exactly the same except for the scar on Zaymot's face. So next is Dr. Mindbender, and you can see I gave him the name that they used in Renegades, but of course that's his actual, you know, his classic design. In as much as I could do it. Obviously, the priority is the cape, and you can see we've got a cape, but it's attached to a torso, like to only a couple of torsos, and so he's unfortunately, thankfully, is not going around bare-chested with a cape. He's got this thing. Besides that, I can make him look just as ridiculous as he should be. I think that blue actually maybe needs to change. The purple I'm pretty happy with, and of course the elements for his head that looks just like Dr. Mindbender. So I think I think we're okay. We're not gonna get into a situation where like, oh, which guy is this? I can't figure that out. Okay, so that's Dr. Mindbender. Next is Fred 2, or Fred 7 rather, Cobra Commander 2. Fred 7, who was one of the Fred series of Crimson Guards, and he was an engineer and built a suit for the commander, and ended up usurping him and leaving him for dead. And I think I always loved the design of that suit. I thought Fred 7 was a funny character because he was so like it was a good engineer, a completely incompetent leader, but schemed with the Baroness to hold power for, I don't know, 30 issues or something like that, and it was a neat little kind of run and stuff. He was on the side that killed, when Serpentor was killed. That was his that was his army that was fighting him. So really the Baroness's, but anyway, there's lots of ways to make a suit like that work in this game, and I've chosen this design for it. I like this helmet a lot. I think that really is evocative of the shape of that helmet that Fred had made, it's got like just the very mechanical feel kind of all over it. So that's Fred Commander. And the other Cobra leader is who I hate in general, but in this is absolutely magnificent. That the parts exist to do this is just mind blowing. The cape, the same cape piece that Dr. Mindbender was just using, is a lot more impressive on this guy. The snakes are a motif in the game, in the XCOM game, so there ended up being a snake cowl. And he's got this kind of messed up face that is, in the game, again, the product of genetic engineering. So here we have the elements that make up Serpentor for real in the G.I. Joe canon. A lot of those same elements exist in this game. And, I mean, I'm impressed that this can exist, and it's just very, very cool. Yeah, I can't wait to get him in the game. It'll be worth playing through as Cobra to do that. So here's Crystal Ball, another character that I hate. He's got the vest on with the fur-lined collar. So I was actually able to get a pretty good approximation of how he is. And again, we can get the face quite accurate. The hair, the mustache. This is a very good model of Crystal Ball. For being a character that I dislike. The elements that really make him are here, aside from his psychedelic shield. But I'm not exactly sure that I want to do that anyway. So that's Crystal Ball. Two more. You'll notice there are clearly missing ones here. especially as I'm getting later on here, you know, Big Boa, for instance, is like there's not any of him yet, and a lot of the Iron Grenadier stuff, Metalhead, all these guys that kind of came. I think I'm decently complete with this up to and including Serpentor, which was about GI Joe number 50, and there are there's a number of characters that are coming after, and of course the Dreadnoks are a separate group. Zartan and the Dreadnoks are a separate group, and Storm Shadow is kept separately also. But I do have two more in this little group that I've got. Dark Lawn with his oh my god, with his color scheme that for some reason I've found was very popular for a couple of years. This green and red. I don't know why. But this shaped mask, this gas mask was too perfect of a shape, and you can see his head is doing the same thing as Destro with the coloration of the skin to make it look like it's part of the mask. So this all works together to give a pretty darn fair representation of this stupid looking character, and that's. I don't mind, if I can make an accurate version even of something stupid looking, I'm okay with that. They're models. It's not my personal statement on a thing. And the last one here is Crocmaster. Again, a character that I just think is just dumb as shit, but is a very good model. He's scary looking. He's scarier looking than Crocmaster has a right to look. The mask is correct. The glowing red eyes are correct. It's a decent looking pattern to simulate the sort of the scales look that he had. All these weird tubes and stuff all over him from the Templar overlay, if you look, the patterns repeated on his boots, so it's like, and he's got great thighs and this, and the guy looks like he just could walk out of the swamp. He's terrifying. I love it. That's Crocmaster. So that's my group of Cobras. I'm gonna stop the video and do a different one for the Dreadnoks, and then I have one other little thing, which is the secondary characters, and that would complete this series, at least of the pre-release things, and I'm going to be putting the actual what's it up in the workshop in the next few days. But that's it for now. I'm going to come back and do the other ones in just a sec.